It was a lazy Saturday afternoon when I found myself browsing through listings on Craigslist. The website was a treasure trove of bargains and oddities, a digital marketplace where you could find just about anything. Little did I know that my decision to respond to a seemingly innocent Craigslist ad would plunge me into a chilling true horror story that would shatter my sense of security and trust in the online world. The ad that caught my attention was simple: vintage record player for sale, $50. As a music enthusiast and collector of vinyl records, I was always on the lookout for unique pieces. The ad included a photo of a beautifully restored record player, complete with intricate woodwork and ornate details. It seemed like the deal of a lifetime. I sent a message expressing my interest and received a prompt response from the seller, who introduced himself as Robert. He provided his address and suggested that we meet later that evening. The excitement of acquiring a new addition to my collection overshadowed any sense of caution, and I agreed to the meeting without giving it a second thought. As evening descended, I drove to the address Robert had provided. The neighborhood was quiet, the houses casting long shadows in the fading light. I parked my car and made my way to the front door, my heart racing with anticipation. Robert greeted me warmly, his smile disarming as he invited me into his home. The interior was cozy, adorned with vintage furniture and framed photographs. The record player sat on a table by the window, its wood gleaming in the soft lamplight. It was even more stunning in person, and I couldn't believe my luck. As we exchanged pleasantries, Robert's demeanor shifted subtly. His smile seemed to linger a little too long, his eyes holding an intensity that made me uneasy. But I brushed off the discomfort, attributing it to my own nerves. After all, meeting a stranger from the internet was always a bit unnerving. I inspected the record player, admiring its craftsmanship. It seemed to be in perfect condition, a testament to Robert's meticulous care. He explained that it had belonged to his grandfather and held sentimental value. I was struck by his attachment to the piece, and it made me feel privileged to be its new owner. We finalized the transaction, and I left Robert's home with the record player in hand. As I drove back, the feeling of unease lingered. I couldn't shake the sensation that something was off, that there was more to Robert's story than he had let on. But with the prized record player in my possession, I pushed the doubts aside. The next few days were uneventful. I set up the record player in my living room and marveled at its ability to bring vintage music to life. However, a series of strange occurrences began to unfold: odd noises in the middle of the night, shadows that seemed to move on their own, and an unsettling feeling of being watched. At first, I attributed these incidents to my imagination, a result of late nights and an overactive mind. But as the days went by, the disturbances grew more pronounced. Objects would inexplicably shift positions, and the feeling of being watched became a constant presence. Sleep became elusive, my nights punctuated by the sounds of creaking floorboards and whispered voices. One evening, as I sat in my living room listening to a vinyl record, I noticed something peculiar. The record player seemed to be slowing down on its own, the music warping into an eerie cacophony. I watched in disbelief as the turntable came to a stop, the needle scratching against the vinyl. Frustration turned to alarm as I realized that the record player was functioning perfectly just moments ago. I inspected the equipment, searching for any signs of malfunction, but everything seemed to be in order. I tried to shake off the unease, convincing myself that it was a technical glitch. But the disturbances only intensified. Objects began to go missing and reappear in different places, as if they were being manipulated by an unseen force. The whispers that had haunted my nights grew louder, their words a jumbled mix of syllables that sent shivers down my spine. Desperate for answers, I turned to the internet, scouring forums and websites for any mention of similar experiences. That's when I stumbled upon a forum thread titled "Beware Craigslist Seller Robert H." The thread was filled with accounts from people who had encountered Robert and had been plagued by unexplainable disturbances after purchasing items from him. The stories were chilling: furniture that seemed to move on its own, mysterious shadows, and whispers that echoed through the night. Some had even reported seeing the figure of a man in their homes, a figure that matched Robert's description. The more I read, the more I realized that my encounter with Robert was not an isolated incident. He was a common thread in a web of unsettling occurrences. Armed with this newfound knowledge, I reached out to others who had shared their experiences on the forum. We formed a support group of sorts, united by our encounters with Robert and the disturbances that had followed. The stories were eerily similar, each account a mirror of the others. One member of the group, Lily, claimed to have made contact with a psychic who specialized in paranormal investigations. With her guidance, we conducted a seance to communicate with whatever presence had been unleashed by Robert's items. As we sat in a circle, our hands joined, the atmosphere grew heavy with anticipation. The room seemed to darken, and the air grew colder. And then, with a sudden jolt, the room was filled with a chilling whisper, a voice that seemed to come from all directions at once. Release. Trapped. The voice was haunting, laden with sorrow and desperation. It was as if the presence was trapped between dimensions, seeking release from its ethereal prison. We listened in a mix of fear and sympathy, realizing that our encounter with Robert had inadvertently connected us to this tormented soul. With the psychic's guidance, we performed a cleansing ritual, a bid to sever the connection between us and the malevolent presence. The room seemed to vibrate with energy as we recited incantations and offered our intentions. And then, as quickly as it had begun, the room fell silent. In the days that followed, the disturbances began to subside. The shadows retreated, the whispers grew fainter, and the sense of being watched slowly lifted. The web of deception that had been spun by Robert's Craigslist ad was unraveling, and the malevolent presence that had haunted us was finding the release it had sought. As I sit here recounting this chilling true Craigslist horror story, I am reminded of the dangers that can lurk in the online world. The web of deceit that had ensnared me serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that not everything is as it seems, and that the digital realm can be a breeding ground for malevolent forces. And as I look back at my experience, I can't help but wonder how many other unsuspecting souls have fallen victim to the web of darkness that Robert had woven, and how many more will unknowingly tread its treacherous path.